Welcome. I am grateful to share this space with you again as we continue our journey through the wisdom of. In our first conversation, we explored the invisible threads, how each of us is part of a larger web of relationships, experiences, and generations. We discovered that we are never truly separate. And in our second conversation, we explored belonging. The deep human longing to have a place, to be recognized, and to know I belong. Today, we enter a very human and often tender part of connection. The moments when connection becomes interrupted. Although connection is natural, although belonging is a deep movement within every human being, life also brings experiences where connection becomes painful. Relationships change, people move away, words remain unspoken, misunderstandings grow. Love may still exist, but somehow it cannot flow freely. And many people carry a quiet question: how did we become so distant? How did something that felt once so close become so painful? And how can people who belong together sometimes struggle so much to reach each other? From a systemic perspective, we look beyond the surface. We do not ask who was right, who was wrong, who is to blame. We simply ask for something deeper. What happened to the connection? What interrupted the flow? And what is asking to be seen? Today, we explore interrupted connection, understanding the roots of distance and pain. One of the profound insights of systemic wisdom is this: a bond can remain even when contact is lost. Connection is deeper than communication. Think about someone who was once important in your life. Perhaps someone you no longer see. Someone who has passed away. Someone from whom life created distance. Even with our daily interactions, something of that relationship may still live within you. A memory, a feeling, a lesson, a wound, a strength. The connection has left an imprint. Human beings are shaped through relationship. The people who touch our lives become part of our inner landscape. This is especially true within family systems. The connection between parents and children, between siblings, between generations. These bonds often continue influencing us even when the relationship itself is complicated. Sometimes people believe if I disconnect, the pain will disappear. But often the opposite happens. The outer distance grows and the inner connection remains unresolved. Most disconnection does not begin because people stop caring. Often connection becomes interrupted because something happened that was too difficult to hold. A loss, a disappointment, a betrayal, a separation, painful event. A moment when someone felt unseen or unsupported. And in response, something inside says, I need to protect myself. This protection makes sense. Distance can become a way of surviving. Silence can become a way of avoiding more pain. Withdrawal can become a way of staying safe. But over time, what protected us can also limit us. The wall we build to keep pain away may also prevent love from reaching us. Imagine a river. The natural movement of a river is to flow. But sometimes something falls into the river, a tree, a rock, an obstacle. The water does not disappear. It searches for another way. And relationships are similar. When something interrupts the natural flow of connection, the longing underneath often remains. The longing to be understood, the longing to be acknowledged, the longing to matter. And then the question becomes, what is blocking the flow? From a systemic perspective, we understand that every person carries a story, of course. And sometimes we look only at behavior and we judge quickly. He does not care. She is difficult. They never understood me. But systemic awareness invites curiosity. What happened before the behavior appeared? What pain exists behind the reaction? What story has not been seen? This does not mean we excuse harmful actions. It does mean we seek a deeper understanding. When we only see behavior, we see the surface. When we see the story behind the behavior, we begin to see the human being. Many families carried interrupted connections across generations. Perhaps a grandparent experienced a loss that was never spoken about. Perhaps a parent carried responsibility too young. Perhaps emotions were not expressed because survival required strength. Then the next generation may inherit patterns without knowing their origin. A child may feel, why is it so hard for me to receive support? Why do I fear abandonment? Why do I always need to be strong? And sometimes the answer is not only personal. Sometimes it belongs to a larger story. Healing interrupted connection does not always mean returning to the relationship in the same way. And this is important. Sometimes people believe healing means I must forget what happened. I must pretend it did not hurt. I must make everything the way it was before. But true healing is different. Healing means bringing awareness where there was only pain. It means creating movement where something became stuck. And sometimes healing happens between two people. Sometimes healing happens quietly inside one person. And sometimes the most powerful movement is simply, I see what happened. I acknowledge the pain. I recognize the connection. And now I choose to move forward. Systemic wisdom teaches us that acknowledgement creates movement. What we reject often remains attached to us. What we acknowledge can begin to find its rightful place when we say, yep, this happened. Yep, this changed me. And yep, life continues through me. I invite you now into a moment of reflection. Allow yourself to become quiet. Perhaps gently close your eyes if that feels comfortable. Bring to mind a place in your life where connection feels interrupted. Not to judge it, not to solve it immediately, simply to observe and ask yourself, what happened here? What was lost? What was I protecting? What did I need that I could not express? What remains unseen? And then gently ask, what would connection look like now with wisdom, maturity, and respect for myself? Allow whatever comes. Sometimes awareness itself is the first step towards healing. As we complete today's reflection, remember every disconnection carries a story. Behind distance, there may be pain. Behind silence, there may be protection. Behind conflict, there may be an unmet longing to be seen. The journey to wisdom-inspired living invites us to look deeper, to move beyond blame, to recognize the invisible threads, and to understand the healing begins when something is finally acknowledged. Connection does not ask us to erase the past. It invites us to relate the past differently, with awareness, with compassion, with wisdom. Thank you for joining me for this third conversation in our connection series. In our next episode, we will explore the courage of authentic connection. We will look at what it means to truly be seen, to express ourselves honestly, and to create relationships where both love and truth can exist. And until then, may you gently acknowledge the places where connection was interrupted. May you honor what your heart carried, and may you continue walking towards the life guided by wisdom. And thank you for subscribing, maybe even giving me a like or sharing because somebody else needs to hear this message too. Thank you for being here, and until we meet again, be safe.